Hello, everybody. Today we're talking about a 1927 film called Sunrise. Okay, so last module was a 1927 film. This module, a 1927 film, but there are some differences. This film is directed by F.W. Murnau. He is a famous German director who's come to America to make a film. The film is going to be Sunrise. Murnau is known for his work in German Expressionism. One of the more famous films that he worked on was called Nosferatu, which is kind of like the original horror film. It's kind of a retelling of Dracula. And so that's about a 100-year-old film now. That was made in 1922, or that's a little over 100 years old now. In this particular movie, there is no sync sound like Jazz Singer, right? So we aren't going to see any synced dialogue when it comes to speaking or singing, but it did use this system called the Fox Movietone Sound on Film system. And so they do have sync sound, but it's sync music and sync sound effects, but no spoken word. Okay, so that particular difference allows them a lot more freedom when it comes to the cinematography in this particular movie, because they weren't tied to microphones and where they were placed on the set, and they weren't tied to the cameras being loud, so they had to be in these little box rooms, blimps, so that we didn't have to worry about that, right? So you'll see some pretty creative cinematography in this movie. The synopsis is: a man seduced by a city woman agrees to kill his wife and move to the city. He sets out to get rid of his wife but can't go through with it. The man and his wife reconcile while enjoying time in the city, and on their way back home they're caught in a storm, and who will survive, right? So that's the plot line that we're going to be watching here. The cinematic style of this particular movie, again, is very elaborate. Okay, so a little bit different than what we saw in The Jazz Singer. They use very elaborate sets. In fact, there's one city street set that's super elaborate. Cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to make, even in 1927, and it was a set that they used at Fox for many, many films. But this is the film that it was built for. There's long tracking shots in this particular movie. So a tracking shot is when we're like following along next to an actor or something like that, which is kind of unique. And they do long ones in this particular film, which is pretty creative at this point. They use forced perspective in the sets to make the sets feel bigger and more just larger. So forced perspective is when things start out normal size close to camera, and then they get kind of smaller as they go back to make it feel like it's deeper space that we're actually in. So look for that. You can actually see an example of that even in the opening shot, I think. And if not in the opening shot, by the time we get to like a carnival scene. They definitely use stylish lighting in this one. It's very high contrast, moody lighting, which is pretty unique and a little bit different than what we saw previously. A lot of times they're just trying to get light on a subject, and so that we can expose it. In this particular movie, they do try to do a lot of mood lighting. This film did win Academy Awards. So the first Academy Award ceremony was in 1929. Okay, this film was made 2 years before that, but they did allow some films that were made pre-1929 into that first awards because it was the first time it had been done, right? So this particular film won an award for Unique and Artistic Picture, which was the only time that award was ever given. It also won the lead actor, Janet Gaynor. She won for Best Leading Actress in a role. And then it also won for Best Cinematography. The guy's name was Rosher, who was the cinematographer. There was two cinematographers. One of them's Charles Rosher, and I'm forgetting Carl Struess, I believe, was the other gentleman. I apologize for my dog barking, but so what to look for in this particular movie, right? So number one, you're going to see the city woman dressed all in black and the wife dressed all in light colors, not necessarily white, but that's kind of this tradition that got started in cinema where, the villain is in dark colors and in black and the hero protagonist is in white. So you're going to see that kind of play out in this particular movie. Also look for the forced perspective set design. So you do see it in the opening shot, how they're going to make it feel like it's a big, huge, long, large set, but really they're forcing the perspective and making the set actually smaller, a little bit further away to make it feel like it's a deep set. So you'll see that in the opening shot, and you also see it in like a carnival scene. And although this is a romantic drama, look for some comedy. There's going to be some comedic moments that you find, which is pretty unique for the director. And in German Expressionism, that wasn't a thing in German Expressionism. So look for that little extra little bit that they played with in this particular movie. And then also you're going to look for that high contrast lighting. So a lot of high contrast, which is kind of a moody lighting feel that they didn't really do before. Again, like early cinema, they're just trying to get enough light on the scene to illuminate so that they expose the film. But in this particular movie, they try to do a lot of mood lighting type stuff. And then also look for the effects work that you might see in different scenes. So like in the storm scene, the rear screen projection and the lightning effects and the boat rocking, those are all effects, practical effects, and effects that were being used to highlight, or not highlight, but just make the scene a little bit more, feel like a little more real, right? So they couldn't do this scene out on the open water with no light and stuff like that, so they had to do it in a controlled setting. So look for the different effects that they applied in this particular movie, because they're pretty cool and pretty well done, especially for 1927, right? The fact that they were doing this. And also, just think about the idea that effects and special effects and just doing things to make a scenario feel more real, it's something they were thinking about way back in 1927. And then today you look at special effects films and how far we've come. It all started way back when, in the 1920s, they were already thinking about ways to put their characters in situations that we couldn't really do normally or in a safe environment. And so they're finding special effect type ways to do this. So enjoy the film. It's a pretty cool film. I think it's actually my favorite silent film because of the way the cinematography plays out. It's such a beautiful film to look at. And to think that they were doing this kind of stuff in 1927 is super impressive. So hopefully you enjoy the film.